Hey guys, welcome back to another Bitcoin news show. We're here again on Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific, talking about Bitcoin. We're here every other Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific. So if you guys want to join us in the future from wherever you are, we had a couple of guests tonight. We got Blake Anderson from the Bitcoin Group. How you doing, Blake?
What's up, everybody? How's it going? Thanks for having me on the Blab and on the line.
Thanks very much for joining, Blake. We got Gabriel joining us back again. How you doing,
Great
Gabriel?
To be back. I'm great. Thank you. Great to be back on the Bitcoin News Show.
Yes, awesome. Just want to thank Blake for coming on the show. This would be his first time. So you've probably seen him around the crypto world. Definitely a cool guy. He's on the Bitcoin Group, and he hangs out on the World Crypto Network as well. So if you guys ever want to talk with us, hang out with us, we're always there on the World Crypto Network Slack. You can find that. If you guys want to invite, you can talk to either me, Blake, Gabriel, or Mad Bitcoins. We would love to have you guys in there. We're really trying to, get as many people in there as we can to talk about Bitcoin, and we're trying to launch as many shows as we can. So, if you guys ever want to participate in this show or take a shot or a chance at actually hosting a show, you can definitely join in here. We welcome anybody anytime to come into this show, all you need is a Twitter account to actually join into Blab. So please, if you guys want to talk Bitcoin, we're here every Monday. Come in and join. We accept all guests, no matter who you are. We just ask that you don't actually harm yourself on the video like we had last time somebody joined in, and we had to kick them for some various reasons. So yeah.
I thought that was just unjust censorship. I can't believe that you kicked the guy engaging in self-harm for everyone to watch. Why would you do that? I mean, it's clear self-expression. It's artistic, not worthy of censorship. I just wanted to say about the World Crypto Group, World Crypto Network Slack, though. It's a really great place to go and promote trying to get people under you in MMM. So if you want to go and promote MMM and get lots of people underneath you, that's the World Crypto Network Slack group is definitely the best place to go.
The World Pyramid Scheme Network.
Yep, the World Pyramid Scheme Network is going to help out a lot with getting people underneath you for MMM.
Exactly. That's what we promote at the World Crypto Network is MMM. No. Actually, recently
this is all a facade.
Actually, we recently heard that actually finally collapsed, I think, in China.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it finally
could have
collapsed.
predicted it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, finally. I did.
Oh, wait, I think everybody did.
Oh, wait, we all did.
We all did. It collapsed in Russia, and now it collapsed in China. I think Africa is the next place to crash. I think that's where they're going next. So we'll see when they crash.
Africa only has $2 total of exposure to MMM anyway. So,
hey, man, I think Ponzi schemes are totally fine as long as everybody knows. And in this case, it was pretty open. The guy was like, "Yeah, I'm running a Ponzi scheme."
The thing about that is that there's a fundamental problem with agency when it comes to peer-to-peer or multi-level marketing like that. So the person at the top knows it's a scheme, and like maybe almost everybody down the chain does, but somewhere along the line, some guy who's not accountable to sales or anything like that goes and says all kinds of crazy shit, and then signs up people underneath him that get burned. And I think that's one of the fundamental areas. Yeah. So I mean, I think that the fundamental problem with agency actually ends up spilling into lots of the different primary reasons that, I mean, MMM or MLM or whatever you want to call it. I know they're not totally the same.
Well, I mean,
but like,
I know this isn't an official subject of the show today, but I mean, how would you stop that other than education? I mean, either that or with a gun to somebody's head. I mean, so.
What we have to do, I mean, unfortunately, we have so many regulatory bodies that people think are protecting us that they make us kind of functionally retarded. So people don't go out and actually make sure that they're not going to engage in things that are going to be harmful to their well-being financially or emotionally or whatever. And then they expect for somebody to bail them out when really they should be, buyer beware from the beginning. And we shouldn't have this false sense of security from these, hyper well-funded, wasteful organizations.
Right, which is by design because the biggest Ponzi scheme of all is government. So
that's true. When is that Ponzi scheme going to fall apart? I've been calling that one for a while. I'm like, come on, baby.
I think this century we're looking at it.
We're at least going to get rid of most of it. I mean, obviously there's going to be stuff left behind. You can't quite get rid of multi-thousand year architecture, overnight.
No, burn it down.
But I think we're going to replace piece by piece by the end of the century. I mean, there's not going to be much left. Just in the next 20, 30 years, it'll be unrecognizable from what it is today. So
I'm gonna be in the lead as an anarchist, being like tear down the legacy system, and they'll be like taking like 10,000-year-old tapestries out, and they'll be like, "Do you really want?" I'll be like, "Burn it! I don't even want to see it. Shut up and burn it." And that's how we'll make a good future, by destroying the past. I think that nothing but can come of it.
Exactly. So very cool. I just wanted to just a quick
but not for real
correction, a quick correction from the last show. We actually and I put it in the show notes too, so people know. But I just wanted to put it in the show too as well, just to say that I actually we had a discussion last show about OpenBazaar and the launch of it, and we discussed the privacy about it. And I guess I read a couple different places that some of the items were actually taken down within 24 hours by OpenBazaar. But actually what happened was it was not taken down by OpenBazaar. It was taken down by the actual stores themselves, because according to the developer, the lead developer, and I forget the other guy's name, the guy running the project, basically said that they have actual no central capability at all to take items down. It is 100% censorship free, just as a lot of people hoped and envisioned that it would be. So that's really cool. I just wanted to put that out there, that OpenBazaar, has no ability to actually take down your store, as I thought they did. That actually is 100% censorship free. They have no central capability. If you look at the code, you can see there is no capability for them to take down your store. So
Brian Hoffman, is that the guy's name? Brian Hoffman?
Yep. So just anything quick to comment on that. Were you guys aware that you cannot take an OpenBazaar shop down no matter what? Were you guys aware of this?
I thought that was the case. And last week I was really surprised to hear you guys say that they had taken something down. I knew that it doesn't work over Tor yet, so that if you do put something questionable, legally questionable up, you're really opening yourself up to an obvious crackdown. So I know that's definitely the case still. And that's by design, because they're trying to build a legitimate business around this where people have they upsell services to stores, which I think is cool. But and then they're going to supposedly enable Tor networking later, which I think is great. And actually today my friend was talking to me, and he said, why does it want to run a server? And I was like, oh, you have to run a server? Maybe that's like MaidSafe, where everybody becomes a server. But I didn't think it was like that. And then I downloaded it, and it took me about 3.5 minutes to download and install it and start browsing things. Great UX, totally smooth. I don't know.
Yep, I downloaded it too, and everything was smooth. I mean, it looked like a modern website. Everything was totally smooth. Blake, anything you want to add? Anything to this? Everything is cool from Blake. OpenBazaar.
Everything is just really, 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 really cool with OpenBazaar, man. No, I don't know. I didn't hear you guys say that something had been taken down, so my jimmies weren't rustled.
Okay, cool.
I was so far out of touch with shit that I just didn't even know that had happened.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, there was a couple of items that were taken down. So like everybody kind of got confused and a little bit worried about did OpenBazaar take that down, or did the FBI or some 3-letter agencies take it down? But no, the actual store owners took it down when they saw how much publicity they were getting. They probably because the idea to go to OpenBazaar is to stay relatively anonymous, right? And I think that the attention that they got within the first 24 hours of OpenBazaar opening kind of probably put them on the map a little bit too much. And I think that it's just speculation, but I'm pretty sure they took it down for that reason.
So individuals speaking for OB1 stated that they could not take stuff off. OB1 being the group of individuals that released this thing that is now beyond their control, so they should be absolved of responsibility, which hopefully is how it plays out.
Yeah.
I mean,
OB1
Ross got fucked pretty bad.
OB1 is the company they formed, the for-profit company. And that's it. This is an interesting. I really love this hybrid model that's happening now as we transition from a centralized, hierarchical societal structure system to a decentralized network structure. You're getting these bootstrapping companies like OB1 and even MaidSafe, which is a for-profit company. They're creating a decentralized platform in order to sell services on top of. And the decentralized platform is a huge freedom-creating, project that has incredible implications. And they're like creating this little, $8 million business on top of this massive, possibly multiple trillion-dollar idea. I love that. I think it's just great, and I think there's going to be more of that.
Well, it's great too because I mean the economy has been so destroyed by inflation that it barely functions anymore. So everything's a race to the bottom. We were talking about in a different chat earlier how just fascinating the story of Amazon is. And if you don't know anything about Amazon, they have not like turned a profit yet or whatever. And it's not because they're not a profitable industry. It's because they have reinvested so fucking much money into their stuff that they have basically, if you just read their actions instead of what they say, they've recognized that there's a race to the bottom because the economy basically doesn't function, and they need to actually have something on a fundamental level which can distribute goods like a powerhouse, and they're continuing to design that. Alibaba ripped off a lot of it, and because they ripped off a lot of it, it was really, really successful. And basically in like the post Kurt Vonnegut post current presumption future, when human behavior is really fundamentally changed by technology, these things are going to be important to be able to service the economies of the future, which are ultralight, and then also in shoring up our current economy, which is going to spectacularly fail and collapse. And then it's going to be like, what kind of galvanization techniques were we able to apply to the structure previously by making these decentralized systems, and or how strong are the nets that these giant towers of everything that we've made, how are things going to react when they fall into them? So I think that definitely not all decentralized projects, and not just decentralization for the blind sake of decentralization, but specific areas of decentralization that are targeting some of these weakest legs of the collapsing legacy economy are extremely fascinating.
Why do you say post Vonnegut?
I say post Vonnegut because he wrote specifically of what happened during the Industrial Revolution relative to automation replacing the physical tasks and the manual labor of individuals. And then the second coming of that was with the internet and information revolution, wherein people's thought tasks and actual mental labor was outsourced to machines. And then once both of those things, virtually all of our jobs are outsourced to machines, what are we going to do to continue to add value to the world? That becomes a complex question, but the answer is more or less we have to add complexity through our ideas and our more fractal ability to program ourselves, and etc. Well, what is that going to look like in the future? It's going to look like a lot of, I think, decentralized autonomous corporations. And the other side of that, I think there's going to be a more nefarious side of the internet in the future, where there's decentralized autonomous traps and all kinds of things that are almost so vile and complex and have required such a hierarchy of understanding that we can't really imagine them now, and that a lot of people in the future will be trying to just go through the internet and different things to find out what happened, call that like a detective or what have you, but there'll be lots and lots and lots and lots of people just trying to figure out really what the fuck is happening and trying to make sense of it. And that's going to be extremely valuable in terms of the future in ways that a lot of other things just can't be. They cannot persist in a way that contains that makes them continually scarce and valuable in the face of how much automation and scientific engineering we're undergoing and how quickly.
Yeah, I think we're already in the beginning of that world. We're already there. We're already there now, and it's not that we're seeing inklings; it's that we're in the established. The things are establishing, and WikiLeaks, I think, is a great example of that type of investigatory.
I mean, I think we're at the point now where the centralized systems are beginning to show their cracks, and that they're actually beginning to be attacked now. So, for example, like hospitals, with the crypto lockers and such like that, and then of course the banks having their documents hacked and put out to the world. So I think as Gabriel said, we're now in the beginning of this transition, and it's getting really real really fast.
Well, I mean, this is going to get into a huge philosophical kind of black hole, but he's saying massive unemployment is a huge issue as well. Well, yeah, absolutely. Transitioning from an economy that's destroyed, like from an economy where people make and build things and service people, to an economy that's destroyed / automated, that makes it a pretty hard deviation to cross. And then like who's going to have jobs? And then you look at collectivism itself on a hyper macro scale, and then biology, survival of the fittest. And like, what's the solution? Is there going to be a massive die-off of our own species? Like, that's not a fun thing to talk about. But like, if you really think about the macro factors of what's starting to roll forward here, it's a very, very, very severe situation that I think we're heading to, with the hyper massive deviation between the intelligence of a large cross-section of the public and then a group of people that are, instead of entertaining themselves to death, are trying to continually inform themselves more and more and more, and basically the deviation of them are going to become almost unnavigable. And what is that going to look like?
Very
Cyberpunk.
Very interesting.
I mean, We have to build the bridging to try to net all that stuff together with Bitcoin and systems that are decentralized and that are anti-fragile. And people are like, why do you give shit about anti-fragility? It's like, well, the systems that are made to shore this stuff up are going to have to be really fucking strong. And it's not just a cute saying. They're going to have to be anti-fragile, hyper decentralized, resistant to attack, and not just because we're fighting against the old system, but because this infrastructure is going to have to pick up a ton of shit.
I love that whole idea, and it's just we're in an iterative phase now with the web. It's just the normal way to do business where everybody's agile, and you have something like Bitcoin where it's like a continuous improvement cycle, and there's never any there's little periodic releases, but there's always something coming down the pike. They always got another pull request. They're always reviewing something. Everything's all getting better all the time. That's the name of the game.
So universal income was, or basic income was mentioned in the chat, as something that could possibly alleviate this. But you got to understand that's still coming from fiat, that's still government issued and issuing government currency. So I'm not so sure how much of a net, right, or a safety net that's going to actually.
Well, the question is the government going to walk up onto the gallows and put the noose around its neck and then jump off the block to save everybody else? And they're never going to do that. And what doing that would look like would be starting a new proof of work chain with a shit ton of support that has a monetary policy that's fair and deflationary like Bitcoin, that has taxation already factored into it, which goes to a basic income for however many citizens, blah, 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 blah.
I'm not quite sure.
That couldn't be reprogrammed. That would be very, very hard.
I'm not quite sure about that, Blake. I think the way it's going to be solved is what you said earlier, which is decentralized autonomous organizations. Everybody.
Well, I agree. This would have to compete with other things. This would have to compete with other things, and it couldn't be attached to GDP. It would just purely have to be that people are involved in it for a mutual interest. It would have to be almost like the emotion of nationalism value currency that would, allow for you both to pay taxes and then maybe to get a basic income that then you could exchange with other free market currencies, and with a free market that's going to handle everything, because you can't have the government running farming and then have, starvation and pervasive democide. I mean, we've tried that in the past and that didn't fucking work at all. I don't want to try that again anytime soon.
Oh, very interesting. All right, so I guess we can start our first topic of the day now that we got all the introductions out of the way. So very cool. I love where the show can actually end up. Sometimes it's very cool. Let's see here. I'm going to paste in the first article of the show for everybody here into the chat. Let's see. All right. Into the chat and into the link here at the bottom. So basically, this is the first article of the show. Bitcoin hits 4-month high and push past $460. So if you've been paying attention, you can see that Bitcoin has been rising little bit by little bit over the past couple of weeks as we get closer and closer to the halving. And so I'd like to get the panelists' opinions here on what's going on and what we can actually see, what we're going to see in the near future, and then maybe next year. So we'll go with Gabriel first. What do you think about this 4-month high?
I think it's very fun to be in a bullish phase on Bitcoin again. We all withstood a long bearish phase when the heat. Yeah, it was really long. All the heat from the rise after the last halving in 2013, the two big peaks, two bubbles that were. That we had to blow off the steam from was really long. And what it is basically the first phase of Bitcoin reward, the 50 Bitcoin reward phase. There were 18 months of completely experimental phase of Bitcoin, and then people started to value it with the pizzas and everything since then. And then in 2011, it was the first thing. So instead of the halvening, the halvening in 2013, we had never been through an entire phase of market, an entire halvening phase, and that was what we have gone through now from March or from late 2012. I think it was late November 2012, all the way up until this coming July, is an entire block reward phase, and this is our first one. So we didn't really get the feel for how the market will react to it, if it goes up, if it goes down. And I'm sure that the coming block reward phases will all have different characteristics as the wider market also reacts. So I think it's really interesting. I do believe that since the last bottom, which was about equal to the previous peak in March or April of 2013, remember, where we dove down to 180 or 200. Since we've doubled since then, I really do believe that we're in a bullish phase, and I do believe the bullish phase is going to continue until months after the halvening. So I'm thinking the bullish phase will continue into next year and possibly a little longer, but possibly only just into next year. So it's very challenging to predict something so volatile, but I feel like we are in the early stages of a large bullish phase. And as I've said on this show before, I do believe that the next bullish phase will leave us above the previous all-time high, which I believe that all-time high was actually caused by a lot of shenanigans in the crappy exchanges and bottlenecks that we had in late 2013. It wasn't a mature...
Which is an admission of Gabriel's guilt.
Yeah. Mark Karpelis I was the one actually masterminding the Willy bot, which
your name is Willy, and you've just been trading the way that you wanted to in order books.
Yeah, Willy bot was a name made up by Ryan Selkis, the 2-bit idiot. It was actually called the Gaby bot, and I was responsible for it. No, there was a lot of fake volume and everything. There's fake volume now, but not really fake bids because nobody can get away with it because the system is more decentralized. So we're getting much more accurate price information and lower volatility. Although, of course, when lately we've had higher volatility as the prices jumped up quite a bit. So to reiterate my previous predictions, I do think that we're looking at close to a doubling. In the 700s to 800s by the halvening in July, and maybe then some weird pullbacky stuff, and then a big fat bubble to the mid 4 figures, and then crashing down somewhere in the 1,000 to 2,000 range.
Oops, I was muted. Okay, interesting predictions, very interesting predictions. Blake, let us hear your thoughts on the recent price rise. Are we in a new bubble? Are we in a new bubble, or what do you think?
It's a new bubble. I called it, so it's popping right now. Good game.
It's called the Blake bubble.
Back all around. Hearn wrote an article about how the experiment is resolved. So that's it. That's no, it's I think we're approaching another block halving. And what was interesting is today, as the prices are running up, more and more and more, today, a lot of the people that I know that work in the Bitcoin industry are like, yo, I can't source enough Bitcoin for my business to keep operating. I'm like, I don't want to buy at a bubble right now. So I'm going to sit and I'm going to wait for a little bit. And when people start sitting and waiting and it becomes a trend, that ends up creating what's called the factors that drive a deflationary spiral. When there's multiple factors that are going to drive the price of something in a certain direction, that's called the deflationary spiral. And I think that what's going to make the deflationary spiral really severe this time is that I think that there's a lot of very clever and arrogant rich people that are watching Bitcoin. Some people that have bankrolls that are the size of nations. And what they're going to do is they're all going to try to long or short based on what they think that other people are going to do to try to be contrarian to different trends to make money and to upset markets. I believe that those whales are unaware that they're swimming around with whales that are so much bigger than them that they could eat them 5 times over. And we're going to see gigantic fights between people that thought that they had the entire situation taken into account, possibly even including nation states doing that. And I think that the next halving event is going to make economic history. I think it's going to be absolutely fascinating to watch who's buying, what kind of whales are doing what. I think there's going to be lots of turmoil and up and down. And I think that the price is going to really, 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 really break away and start to go high. It's not going to not correct or anything. But I do think that this is going to be a very, very severe halving because as we get closer to the year 2140, there's going to be less and less relative supply decrease. So the last halving, there was, a fair bit of attention on Bitcoin. And then this is going to be the largest halving as far as, what's going to happen in the future. So I think it's going to be a very, very interesting event. If you look at markets and like to watch markets, watch at different times of day leading up to the block halving where there is, billions of dollars flowing in and out of Bitcoin to the point where various different people can't source enough. So they're putting, increasingly high bids. People are seeing those go in. They're, tightening on their supply, and they really start to drive, 3, 4, even 5 factors contributing to a deflationary spiral. And that's, a fascinating thing to witness. I'm not trying to say this like, everybody, get as much exposure on credit cards on this date as you can and like sell here. I still want people to, invest responsibly and on long horizons. But that being said, this seems like it objectively has the factors to warrant a hypermassive load of attention around this economic event, the likes of which have never really been possible in history before. So I think that things are getting really, really exciting in that regard. Are things going to correct and go down and up and down before the halvening comes? I don't know. As these bears start to test things up and down, as the relatively priced in things are pushing the price up, approaching the halvening, and it'll be interesting to see. But I definitely wouldn't, if things start to go down, sell right away at a loss. I mean, you suffer losses on investment when you sell at a loss. So don't sell at a loss, and the macro deflationary monetary policy of Bitcoin should, in the long term, bail you out. You experience losses when you choose to sell at a loss. So I guess that's one of my strong pieces of advice is have investment horizons. And an investment horizon refers to the length of time that you're willing to be, away from amount of money. Have investment horizons that are responsible, that are, longer. Invest, bullishly, thinking that it's going to go up. I mean, if you're really anti-Bitcoin, you can invest bearishly. I wouldn't recommend doing that. But bulls make money and bears make money in most markets, but pigs get slaughtered. And pigs are people with ephemeral or short investment horizons, or people that are just trying to look at what other people are doing and jump in and make money. And that's how people get hurt pretty bad. And that's actually where a lot of the money that other people make in markets, where that money actually is coming from.
The get rich quickers, man. The get rich quickers.
I forgot to
the pigs get slaughtered.
Yeah, I forgot to mention just a couple small fundamental things that I think are fueling this particular bullish phase just recently. So last summer was when things really heated up for the big block debate it was basically a social attack on the Bitcoin ecosystem by people that don't want Bitcoin to succeed. And for a while there, it really rattled a lot of people. Not me, not a lot of people that really understand Bitcoin, but part-time people, casual investors.
The fair weathers were real upset.
Fair weather friends, yeah, exactly. They were upset, and and then of course journalists were eager to jump on any drama, and it really rattled a lot of people. I think it genuinely caused a lot of people to sell their Bitcoin and the price to really suffer in a direct way due to this perceived risk with Bitcoin. It was actually really just a social attack. And because people with money actually in the game, like big mining companies and whales and people that are heavily invested into Bitcoin with millions of dollars, because those people hire smart people, and smart people can see through bullshit. The people that really matter didn't really change their strategy and really didn't change anything. They just kept making commits and doing what they were doing and mining and adding mining hash power. And so what happened was none of the predictions of collapse came true, and none of the descriptions of schisms were accurate. And after a while, everyone just realized that the attackers were completely full of shit. Classic was an attack, XT was an attack, big blockers, value had completely warped views and totally.
What do you think Roger Vere's role with Classic was? Because he seemed to really both support Classic and to seem to have a vested interest in Bitcoin.
Yeah, because he's still supporting Classic. Like he just tweeted out the other day, like something about VCs are not going into Bitcoin because of
I've talked about Vere before, and let me just make it very clear that he's a very unique subset of stupid people who happen to really understand Bitcoin early enough and get really wealthy.
He understands the philosophy of Bitcoin
Yeah.
very well. I would not,
Yeah,
he does.
He's very aligned politically with Bitcoin, and I definitely agree with a lot of his political viewpoints. He's just not that smart, and he's just not that technical, and so he got completely taken in by this social attack because he's just not really one of those smart guys that are like behind the scenes at mining companies doing things that Blake does, like cybersecurity, or things like Vortex does, which is straight code slinging. Rockers.
Like when I had my very, 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 very first poll about what should Bitcoin do about full block sizes. I was one of the first people that ran a poll. Switching to Classic was not an option that I listed. Switching to XT was not an option that I listed. I was like, what should we do? Should we wait for SegWit implementation? Should we hard fork over to 4 blocks? Like all of my options. People were like, what about Classic? And I was like, that's not a viable option. I'm a scientist, so go ahead and do whatever you want.
Exactly. So intelligent people didn't fall for it. Roger, unfortunately, is not one of those people. I think he's actually a very moral person, which is possibly his only redeeming characteristic, because he's not really a good speaker either. But I really respect his moral fiber, because he never says things that are morally questionable and that I've ever heard, which is really cool. But he also never says anything that's that I've never heard him say anything intellectually interesting at all. So that's Veer's. That's my take on Veer. Anyway, so these people didn't get taken in, and it's been 9 months since things really, kind of hit the fan last summer. I feel like it was. And it's been going on longer, but things really got kind of quote unquote serious among the media and the technorati and on freaking blogs, on Medium, and Twitter. So, but now it's like, it's just so obvious. You have guys, really intelligent guys like Samson Mao out there with clever, funny comments. We got like a humorous voice in there pointing out the fallacies in a really accessible, interesting way that's kind of hard to deny, even if you're an idiotic executive. So what we're seeing is the reaction to that in the markets, where people are like, wait, there's no schism. These guys really were making shit up and things are just fine. And then we had version 0.12.1. 12.1 introduced a couple of really important features in Bitcoin that are going to enable Lightning Network. And then we also had last week the pull request for segregated witness, which solves a bug that Lightning Network needs solved. So now Lightning Network has once that goes into the code base.
Segregated witness changes fundamentally several things that are not operating at maximum efficiency in the Bitcoin protocol, so to speak. Separating out the signatures makes it so that transaction malleability is effectively solved, making it so that people cannot rewrite bullshit information on the back end of a transaction, which was one of the biggest problems with with all kinds of shit. I mean, what you can extrapolate from that problem is, is paramount. So I think that it's exciting to get all this stuff done. I also, though, want all this stuff to be done in a hard fork eventually, so that we can get back to some clean code. When you soft fork repeatedly as many times as we have, that's you're kind of fucking around with the code a little bit more than I'm comfortable with. Yeah,
well, it's challenging, to refactor code that's being used, in an ongoing system that absolutely cannot go down. But it could be interesting. We could see a hard fork if the developers agree that that's the right way. But in any case, just perception wise, these new features with like relative time lock verify, the SegWit, pull request, which has this transaction malleability fix, which basically stiffens up the Bitcoin ecosystem and makes the transactions even that much more rock solid, and enables Lightning Network. People are seeing, oh wow, these guys are really serious. I mean, segregated witness is in review for a few weeks, and then it'll come into the code base in maybe 2 months. We're looking at a 40% capacity
in 5 years. People were saying it was going to take 5 years to implement. And it's like, I'm sorry, but I was an information technology project manager for math-based security. Like I don't mean to appeal to authority or whatever, but 5 years, what the fuck are you talking about? Luke Dash Jr. turned it into a soft fork at one conference. 5 years, I'm sorry, but you're just like that. Don't push it out of your ass and show it to me like it's a fact. You got
to take a few weeks to look it over. You got to take a few weeks to test it, and maybe an extra couple weeks because it's real important, and then you're done. And these guys have been testing it for 6 months, so this is.
You got to really test it and everything. But 5 years just like, let's get hyperbole involved.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. And so these guys are now seeing, oh shit, this is a pull request and it's real and they're testing and it's freaking working and everything's groovy. And now everyone's seeing, wow, I guess that Lightning Network thing, you just have to create a little bit of a messaging protocol and it's, you got to code it up, but they're looking at like fall. And so then you're looking at like nearly instant, nearly free microtransactions. I mean, a huge capacity increase. We don't even need that much capacity. I mean, when Lightning Network launches, we're going to have tons of overhead until we get a lot of users flooding in and opening channels, at which time we'll need to, but meanwhile, I've seen other proposals for scaling that use payment channels, but not on a hub and spoke model, a non-Lightning Network. I mean, once you have Lightning Network and you have the messaging written, you'll be able to create other formations of payment channels that are, can continue to enable. And then there's side chains. And then there's other types of chain, blockchain manipulation projects that are going to increase scalability. I think it's basically the reality of the situation is hitting home that we've got what Andreas Antonopoulos always talks about, which is programmable money. We actually have this thing. It's not like I feel like until 12.1, they were there was a lot of stopgap stuff that they were just kind of like filling in, and there was a lot of little bug fixes and like efficiency fixes. And now we're really seeing these powerful yet simple features like relative time lock verify that enable incredible things in like 70 lines of code that like it's like world changing, because once you have the basic Bitcoin, you start building things on top of it and it's incredibly powerful. So I think those are some of the fundamentals behind.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to Ultimape earlier, and he was talking about decentralization in the Bitcoin blockchain too, about how having one chain centralized is having the information centralized, and we were theorizing the alt chains then can be like the decentralization of the blockchain in case you need to step out or step aside, or in case you have a house that loses network connectivity and you need to set up an altcoin. We should actually invite him in later to talk about it, because his ideas are much more, I would say, gelled than a lot of other people that I've heard talk about that same subject.
He was talking about altcoins primarily, or also side chains, tree chains?
Well, he was talking about alternative chains to the blockchain, not relative to altcoins, but just relative to what is the utility, use case, and purpose of having chains that are decentralized from the centralized point of centralization that is the central chain. So it's like, yeah, okay, the central chain really is centralized, and from the pure measurement of centralization versus decentralization, which isn't always a good argument, but sometimes it's like, well, yeah, having one centralized chain that you can never jump out of isn't good. So where are the best value propositions for alt chains in in a household or in a community, or for a town, or for a state, or for a nation, or for a big, completely separate chain that's just as big? And I thought those were very, very interesting thoughts that were not wrapped around like, how can I control the rails and make a bunch of money on this, which is what most people, which is the stance that most people come to me.
That's amazing. So many of these ideas. I mean, that's one of the great things about Bitcoin. It's just brought so many incredible minds to the space that are all innovating at the same time.
So let me ask you then, Blake, what is your, let me ask you both of you one question first. Do you think this is the last year that we'll see Bitcoin under $500? Gabriel first.
Under $500. Yes. Yeah, I do. I think we're looking at about 800 in July, and I think we could see below 500 this year again right. If we rise above 500. I could see conceivably dropping below 500, but I'm pretty sure we're going to start seeing the price doubling by the end of the year, like doubling up quickly by the end of the year. I think we're going to be heading into a bubble next spring. So I'm going to say no, because I don't think the pop of the bubble is going to reach much below.
Okay. So, and then Blake, and then you think we're going to hit new all-time highs as well, I believe, right? Just like Gabriel?
Well, yeah, and then are we going to go back below 500? It's like, well, back below 500 on what? Like on one specific exchange where whales have really put buys and shorts and leverage to get the price up and down. It's like, well, if that's one exchange, then that's not really the entire price. So, I mean, maybe ephemerally on single exchanges, the price will really rubber band up and down. But I see it. I see the Bitcoin price is kind of, going way up and down, but always ratcheting in a direction towards, general growth, which is what the stock market is supposed to do, but is done purely through inflation.
Andreas likes to use this, right? It's always going up and down, right? But instead of going like this, it goes like that.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of there being like people like, I like the dollar because it's predictable. It's like predictably losing value. Like, okay,
it's been predictably losing.
Yeah, it's Bitcoin is quite the opposite because it's inflation affects it as well, but it's also very much
exactly. Cool. So let's see. Before we move on to the next article, I'd just like to ask everybody if in the chat if they could, if they're watching this live, if they could just go ahead and tweet out, Facebook out that we're here talking Bitcoin. You can hit the tweet button or the Facebook button on the left. Before we start our next topic here, let me paste it into the chat.
You should make me a co-host so I can play YouTube videos with copywritten material so we can't upload this on YouTube.
That's the best. That's the most fun right there.
That's how I love to help a co-host.
Exactly. All right, so let me paste this link in here. This link is actually got to us from Gabriel. He actually mentioned this link. Pretty interesting stuff here. So we're going to talk about the MaidSafe network for a quick minute here. And basically, MaidSafe kind of, a lot of people thought they kind of dropped off the face of the earth, but really they've just been continuing to code. They've been keep their heads down, continuing to check in code. And I really think that MaidSafe is going to turn into something one day. And I don't want to like pump any coin or any altcoin or anything like that, but I really think that MaidSafe shows a lot of promise for the future based on the way that they're actually developing the system. And the possibilities are kind of really endless if they nail it and get it right and launch it out. So Gabriel, I'll go with you first. What's the news with MaidSafe here?
Okay, so give people a little bit of a background.
Hey, Gabe, do you want me to go first? Because you're going to talk a lot more about this. You know a lot more about it. I want to just lay out some concerns that people have that are very brief.
Oh, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to go first really quick and just say that MaidSafe is amazing technological development. I don't think that anybody that's a computer scientist would look at the kind of research and engineering that they're doing and say that doesn't have value. It has a tremendous amount of value. People need to crowd fund, raise things so that the people that are working on development can make their money back and then continue development. That should be the reason that people are contributing money to these crowd sales, not to make lots of money in some kind of a pump or like, I got in so early that I'm going to make lots of money. So from that perspective, people should be concerned about these happenings because it's very, very, very good scientific research to be updated on these kinds of things. What you shouldn't do is be somebody that's a bag holder on MaidSafe and then bring this up as saying like, look, my investment is going to be worth something because anyway,
exactly.
I leave it over to Gabe.
And I currently don't own any MaidSafe, but I'm damn sure going to buy some like soon. Like I would have probably bought some earlier, but personal.
And if you're going to buy some to use it for what it's purposed for, that's fantastic, and you should do that.
Exactly.
Well, right now, okay, so to give a little background for people on this subject, company was started by a gentleman in Troon, Scotland 10 years ago, and David Irvine. Really smart guy. He basically saw that the client server model is completely screwed up. It's totally faulty from a computer philosophical approach. It basically, the client server model creates centralized points of failure. And so he thought, well, gee, it would be great if we could build an encrypted layer on top of the internet where that dissolves the difference between client and server. Everyone becomes a producer and a consumer of data, and everyone serves and grabs data from everybody else, and all the addresses are completely decentralized, and everyone shares in the pushing and storage and pulling of data. That's the basic approach. Everything's completely anonymous, completely secured cryptographically, and completely decentralized. So that's the basic approach. It's basically just it's what Kim.com talks about wanting to make with his MegaNet. It's basically what that actually is, without being, hot air. It's something that's actually being built. So in 2013, David Irvine realized, oh wow,
I
people.
don't know. Kim was kind of physically stopped. I don't know if that's fair.
What's that?
They kind of physically stopped Kim.com. I don't know if that's a fair thing to say.
Oh well, they stopped him from with his other company, but yeah, I mean that's Irvine is much more low profile, and I think that's very smart. So in 2013, he saw that Bitcoin was really taking up. He's like, geez, people are getting hip to this crypto thing that I've been working on for 7 years with like funding from my friends and like my aunt. You know what I mean? Like they probably had under £1 million to start this thing, and they were just kind of not bumbling, but they were noodling along using C++ for 7 years, and they're like, geez, this is our opportunity. This is great. They've got a bunch of new Bitcoin millionaires, a bunch of people who made money off this rise in the deflationary Bitcoin spiral, even though our project is not directly related to Bitcoin other than being cryptographic. And so they did a crowd sale, and they sold colored coins. They sold tokens to represent the future currency that they will launch with MaidSafe, and they raised like 12 or 14 million bucks or whatever. So and they were smart, much smarter than Ethereum. They cashed it all out immediately and kept it in fiat so that it wouldn't be super volatile, and that they could actually plan their hires. And so now they have a team, and they've been working on the protocol. About a year, I think, after the crowd sale, they decided to switch their entire platform from C++ to this new language called Rust that is specifically for distributed platforms. And it was a very risky proposition at the time. A lot of people were like, oh no, it's going to slow you down because you got to rebuild everything. And they're like, yeah, it will slow us down temporarily. And it's becoming very clear as of the last 6 months that was a very smart decision, because now all of their development speed has gone up by about 8 or 10x. So anytime they want to build new features, build new things, it's coming up really, really fast. And so now we're at the time where the main elements of the minimum viable product are being completed. We've got what they call crust, which I believe is actually the encrypted layer that will sit on top of TCP/IP. So that's the base core of the MaidSafe software stack. Crust, and then routing, which is, of course, or routing, as they say in Scotland and England. This is actually moving the data back and forth. So that's TCP/IP, or not TCP/IP, TCP and UDP on top of crust. So they actually just finished UDP. So now that is actually basically where we're at as far as the complete parts of the ecosystem, where they're ready to go. They've got working betas with everything cool. And the next two layers, I believe, are called messaging and vaults. So messaging is for encrypted communication between users or between what we would call accounts. And then vaults are the storage. So that gives us the step to SafeCoin. So the representative token that was rewarded in the crowd sale, and that's currently floating on markets, are these colored coins on Bitcoin using the Omni protocol, previously known as Mastercoin. Those are called MaidSafe coin. They're just colored Bitcoin, which have actually gone up about 5x in the last few months.
I saw that. The price is actually climbing.
Yeah. Yeah. So MaidSafe coin is just a colored coin. It has no other function than just as a placeholder that will be exchangeable for SafeCoin when the MaidSafe cryptographic currency, non-blockchain currency launches. As soon as it's done, they're going to need messaging, which will be what's used for actual transactions, and vaults.
It's launching in tandem with the sequel to Duke Nukem.
Come on, the sequel launched already.
So I mean,
even though it launched like 15 years later, it's still never coming.
See, so they've actually been the development updates, and I've been keeping track of like, okay, UDP is not working for like 6 weeks. Oh wow, they did it, and so they're actually making very steady progress. It takes time. This is a new thing, but Rust, they're also like finding bugs in Rust and working together with the Rust team to help fix and create new elements in the language that will help create MaidSafe too, because MaidSafe is by far the largest project made with Rust ever before. So that's an interesting factor too. So it's definitely coming hard and fast, all these pull requests. And so the vaults is how the system will work. To give you guys an idea, basically instead of mining with Bitcoin, where they guys competed, human beings that are running data centers compete with each other to solve these cryptographic functions with their machines. In MaidSafe, you're just giving up your storage and bandwidth to the network, and the network stores sharded, cryptographically secured pieces of data that nobody has any idea whose data is where. It's completely,
and that makes you so excited that you just sharded.
It's totally random. Nobody has any idea where these pieces of data is. But it's stored. It's backed up in at least 4 places. So it's basically like a decentralized Dropbox. But you get rewarded for donating your drive space to the network, and you get rewarded with this internal currency, which will be called SafeCoin. Now, SafeCoin
sharing. Okay, Chairman Mao.
Yeah, right. It's communist. It is actually, somewhat, except there's no centralized point of control. So it's actual communism, not fake 20th century communism, in a sense. So, so what you get is the SafeCoin.
The Venus Project, man.
So unlike Bitcoin, which is a ledger technology, SafeCoin is a cache technology. It's an actual piece of data. And the double spending mechanism, protection mechanism, is small networks of close by peers, not geographically. This is in XOR space. Your peers on the data space that are nearby your node are the ones that cryptographically check your transaction. So anytime you send SafeCoin to anybody, 80% of the nearby network has to approve the transaction before the new owner gets control of that coin, which is a unique number, basically. So unlike a ledger, it's an actual piece of data that is moved from one vault to another, and those nearby nodes have to check its validity. So it's very difficult to scam that because it's totally random.
Yeah, that's definitely different than blockchain and ledger technology. So that's interesting to see.
Yeah, completely different.
And does it scale well? I mean, how is this going to scale? Well,
it'll scale better than blockchain for sure. I mean, it doesn't have any of the transparency or trackable possibilities built into it. It's just a piece of data that can move.
It's anonymous by default. Like by default, right. Everything is encrypted. You
completely anonymous. Yeah,
and it works well in small scale, medium scale, and hypermassive global adoption scale.
Yeah, because basically, the more units there are, the more nodes are set up to deal with those vaults. The more vaults there are, the more nodes that you'll need in order to protect the double spending. Same thing with the data, serving and receiving of data. It completely makes DDoS impossible. For example, MaidSafe routes around the DDoS problem because the more people go to a given piece of data, the more people will have to store it. So when you go and look at a piece of data, you're gonna end up possibly storing it, or it'll end up being stored somewhere. The more demand there is for a piece of data, the more the network will automatically back it up that much more and create that much more blanket coverage of that.
And what encryption algorithm do they use?
That I'm not as certain about. I know that they're using some similar algorithms to Bitcoin.
Well, here's what's crazy too.
Like a SHA-2.
Here's what's crazy too, Blake. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Gabriel, but I think that, let's say you have that piece of data that people are accessing. I think that if you are the owner of that data, the more people that access it, I think you get actual coin return. You get profit. The more views that you get on a piece of data, the more profit that gets sent to your way, because you can't view data, I think, without. I don't think you can view like a data or a website on MaidSafe without giving it some coin in order to view it.
I'm not certain if it's absolutely required to pay SafeCoin in order to access data.
Okay.
I'm not exactly.
It's like a hyper decentralized pay-per-view nightmare.
Right. Basically, the SafeCoin is.
I'm just.
Well, it'd be cool because, Blake, check this out. If it works out, that means that there'd be a built-in financial system so that you wouldn't actually need to have any type of third party to power your idea or your website. So you could start something.
No, I get it. It's taking the Bitcoin value proposition from, from currency plus payment network to currency plus payment network plus actual virtual data manipulation and storage, which is a logical next step. It's just such a fucking hypermassive undertaking that's it's very interesting to follow the project along. I'm not saying that it's not going to work. It's just very interesting following the project along.
And I think that
MaidSafe is going to take a little while longer.
Yeah, I think that MaidSafe isn't going to obviously be the only one that's trying to crack this. There was a couple other things before this that were trying to crack it as well, and they didn't obviously do that. So it's going to be an interesting thing to crack, and we'll see if they can do it.
One of the things,
I mean, do you think that they're maybe off on off to a poor start when they haven't copied over a lot of the progress that BitTorrent and their sharing information has made, or are they implementing that at the core?
Yeah, MaidSafe is based on DHT. Yeah, I mean that's built into Crust. So they've got. I'm fairly certain that's one of the promptings where David Irvine saw Bitcoin DHT and BitTorrent happen in 03.
Oh, so we saw that Crust and DHT are now okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're using that.
Almost like the right socket set for your processor.
Exactly.
So I wonder if they're going to implement IPFS somehow.
I mean, that's another thing is the Project Alexandria and all the stuff that they're doing, and should they combine with MaidSafe? And I don't think that they have. I mean, their IP is definitely not as valuable as MaidSafe, but you wonder if there's any overlap that they could do, because Alexandria is basically trying to make a decentralized library with IPFS.
Yeah,
and I don't know, maybe they could help each other fill in.
I think from what I've seen, MaidSafe does not excel at permanent data. So it has a lot of backup and things, and it's really great. But the less people go and look at things on the network, the less likely it is to maintain it. So anything that's where you want permanent...
So cat pictures and porn is the entire internet in about 2 months under a MaidSafe.
Right. So yeah, this permanency paradigm that you get naturally with a blockchain.
All the art is deleted by default.
You
don't even need to push delete and have all the history gone. It'll just be thrown in the trash because nobody was looking at it.
That permanency vibe is something that you'll have to build on top of the base MaidSafe sort of impermanent and completely decentralized model. So it's pretty interesting how different it is. I love that, and I love the idea of IPFS or any blockchain, especially Bitcoin, over MaidSafe. I mean, it's better than Tor because it's a completely encrypted messaging protocol. And so, I mean, Bitcoin, in my opinion, once MaidSafe launches, the best and most secure and anonymous way to use Bitcoin will certainly be over MaidSafe. To send your Bitcoin transactions on the Lightning Network over MaidSafe, it's a no-brainer. So it's a powerful combination. And you can also, okay, so...
Hold on, before you go off on that crazy huge thought, David, because I can see it in your eyes. You're going, but just real quick. So that means that what we want to do is want to combine Bitcoin, MaidSafe, and IPFS for the ultimate decentralized network.
Oh yeah. IPFS would be a natural fit, and I've been active a little bit on the MaidSafe forums.
Gay.
And is that a shout out to somebody? What was that?
No, I was saying gay to your idea. That was my.
Oh, okay, yeah, great.
My rebuttal.
Lovely rebuttal.
So I've been kind of active on the forums, and I've been kvetching about. People are like, "Yeah, we got to have our own blockchain," and I'm like, "You guys don't." David Irvine is not reinventing the wheel with this. Neither should you guys. So in any case, I've been also arguing with users on the MaidSafe forum about something that Vortex touched upon, which is the pay the producer or pay the developer models, where you've got these gatekeeper functions that are requiring SafeCoin payment in order to get into. So if you're using a gatekeeper to prevent somebody to get to your website, that's cool, and you can force them to pay something to get to your data. That I think that's okay. Whatever you want to do, but they were talking about implementing inside of MaidSafe in the base layer a pay the producer rewards model where intellectual property is then automatically rewarded by the users by paying safe coins out to the producers of content, which I think is idiotic. That would be the stupidest thing ever. I mean, intellectual property, first of all, is a completely ridiculous thing. I mean, change one bit in your file and the hash is completely different. MaidSafe uses hashes to store all the data. It's a completely untenable thing. And I keep trying to tell people, you're trying to put this scarcity model on something that's not scarce. Safe coins are scarce. But if you try to make your song or your poem that are infinitely replicable data, yes, if it's exactly the same by bit, but very few things in our lives require that level of exactitude. I mean, nothing that we would consider intellectual property to this day is a bit accurate, situation where if you change one bit, the whole intellectual property collapses. That's not the case at all. And so it doesn't fit together with the idea of unique hashes. And so they're trying to fit this pay the producer model directly into it, and it's a complete boondoggle. If MaidSafe tries to incorporate a pay the producer or pay the developer model for their app and creative content development, that will be the nail in the coffin, and MaidSafe will fail. That's my prediction.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
I think that they should just make a whole bunch of MaidSafe and then give it to me. and I think that they'll do very well.
Cool.
But only if they do that. If they don't do that, they won't do very well.
So we really have time left for one article. Trying to decide which one I want to do. Let's see. Do we do? Let's see. Well, I guess. What would you guys rather talk about? The chain anchor or Steam?
Steam.
Yeah, Steam is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, chain anchor is just basically like a
trolls.
Know your customer, anti-money laundering law, chastity belt for Bitcoin that nobody that understands is going to want. And then really, I mean,
government shit.
Implementing it on a global currency is not tenable anyway, so we'll just skip over to Steam, which is a much more entertaining subject.
Very true. Very cool. So
I've been a Steam user for long time.
So first, let me just start us out with, I know that the Bitcoin group covered this a little bit, but still, so you guys both, covered this on the Bitcoin group. But I wanted to cover it at least a little bit too, because I myself am a gamer as well, and I've been on Steam almost as long as Blake. I think 11 years myself is the badge I have. So I have.
I win 1-0.
Yeah. I have over like 150 games on there, and so I'm a huge gamer. It's on my Twitter profile that I'm a gamer. So I play a lot of games, have been playing a lot of games, and I actually started, like a lot of us, I started my technological career, I guess you could say, playing the Nintendo when I was 5, right? Like that was the first real exposure to technology for me was the Super Nintendo or the Atari, and that really kind of kickstarted my love and fascination for technology. So I think this is going to be a really big subject. I think that that Steam is going to really open up people's minds, because I know that Tone and stuff was saying, as Tone does, that it doesn't quite matter too much because maybe it's a small niche audience, but at the end of the day, video gamers are a huge audience these days. I mean, it is huge. It is blowing up. It is just not stopping, and now we have VR. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, they're virtual spaces that are incorporating virtual money. I mean, it's just like the level of like fit together Lego-ness within just the blast light coming out. Like it just makes so much sense.
So before, actually, we're gonna go with you, Blake, first on this one. But before I go to you, so I did tweet out a tweet about what I thought, maybe possibly a very general tweet that I thought Steam could do. I basically highlighted a couple of the things on Steam website that could maybe interface with blockchain technology, like their markets. They have a whole huge market for in-game items. That you mentioned that, and that's insane what they have. Like they literally have market actual value prices for these items, which is just like blows my mind what you could do with that with blockchain and technology, having instant transfers and things like that. And then the second thing was, let's see, what was it? I forget, but that was the biggest, most interesting thing was their markets. Their market stuff is really, no, that wasn't it. So yeah, the market stuff. But Blake, so if you could go into what you think about Steam accepting Bitcoin, and what effect you think this will actually have on the populace of Bitcoin. Will it grow it faster, or does it even matter, or is the gamer audience big enough to where this could really matter? Go ahead, Blake.
Like kids and stuff. Like I'm a parent, so I like take my kid to the park all the time. My kid is 5 years old, loves to go to the park. I go to the park constantly in the summertime. There's like no kids outside. None. They don't do anything. They all sit indoors all the time playing games. It's where they learn everything. It's where they interact with people. I mean, computers are kind of the way of the future. And so, like, it's where the kids are. Where are the kids? They're playing games. And if they don't want to be lonely or whatever, they're not playing single player games. They're playing online games or community games, or they're in Ventrilo with their friends, or they're on TeamSpeak, or they're playing World of Warcraft, or they're basically on Steam. You can only play World of Warcraft so long before you move over to Steam and find that community there. So people that are on Steam that are existing in virtual worlds that now have access to digital value, that they can have digital scarcity attached to their things that were pretty good for micropayments before. Like basically when you play Steam, it's like you install Steam and it is this housing basically for applications. You have all your different installed applications, specifically games that are there. And what Steam does, the initial value proposition was, hey, every time there's an update for your new game, it'll find the latest version, so that when you want to play games, you can play your game instead of being like, oh, Grand Theft Auto needs to do a 5 fucking hour update. I only had, 5 hours off this week. I guess I don't get to play games this week. People didn't like that. And so Steam came out of basically a need for that. And being able to not only buy things in Steam, but it's really, 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 really pivotal that they also integrate some kind of Steam incorporation into their item and auction markets. And I think that that's going to be the really, really important thing to see. It will also be, it won't be non-notable if they don't. I mean, I still think that them accepting Bitcoin for games is great. I'm going to buy Dark Souls right away. DLCs and all kinds of stuff I'm going to buy. But I think that it's going to be very, very, very important if they don't instantly incorporate it into the market, to continually remind them that that's something that would make all of the hats more valuable. And hats is the exact right thing to call it. There's all these different items, but really they started as different hats that you could wear in Team Fortress and the Counter-Strike games, because, customization beyond that really kind of it was possible to cheat or whatever and make it so your character was all tan color, whatever the hell, in the desert maps and stuff. So it started out with hats. The hats gained value, and then the more and more games that decided to latch on to the system had their own items, and those being tradable for Bitcoin will expose an entire new younger generation that learned about economics firsthand, empirically, through the WoW auction house and all kinds of shit. They're going to learn stuff that maybe we were tried to be taught in school. I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't taught a lot of civics or economics when I was in high school. Now people are going to see this stuff unfold on their own terms. They can actually see items of value that they have increase in value and trade. And it's not just going to expose an entire generation to Bitcoin, but everything that Bitcoin was designed and engineered for, and everything that Bitcoin stands for, the actual value proposition of adding something positive and being rewarded for it, instead of, doing whatever horrible shit that you possibly can to end up being president so you can drone strike the fuck out of other people. And that's just how the world's going to get better and better and better, because it's not. It's going to get better by people loving each other and playing video games and trading voluntarily, not by people, going and blowing shit up.
Exactly. I just think I just can't imagine how amazing this could be for just young people growing up with the ability, with creative energy to create all of these amazing in-game items, and now like being able to actually have a job doing that. I mean, being able to do that for a living, like literally just creating items in-game items for games, could be huge. I mean, super huge, and it could go beyond that too. Like, because now that we have an actual currency, now we could fund games, easier, indie games easier. We could do all sorts of things that Steam could take advantage of with instant cryptocurrency. So I really hope that they take a hint from the community, because I know I'm not the only one that's messaging Gabe. What's his name? CEO of Valve. Gabe Newell, right? Yeah. So I know I'm not the only one messaging that guy, about Bitcoin. And so this is, I hope that he really takes a hint. But of course, we have to understand that they have to dip their toe in the water, right? They can't just convert their entire in-game marketplace to cryptocurrency. At this time, it is too early right now. Although we all wish that would happen, it's going to be a little ways off, I'm sure. So this is, I think, a really amazing introduction. So I think it's really going to be a really amazing introduction to Bitcoin for people, being able to just dip their toe in the water by accepting Bitcoin as another payment. It's really kind of interesting, because they can tell everybody, oh, we're not doing anything with Bitcoin. It's just another payment to us. But really, behind the scenes, all the engineers and the developers who are working on getting Bitcoin to work in this, of course, are like, well, Blake is scaring me right now, so. But yeah, all the engineers and developers working on incorporating this into Steam, they're all going to be wondering what we can do next, right? They're all going to be wondering what else can we do with this Bitcoin thing. And so I hope that it takes off much more beyond than just accepting it as another payment. But Gabriel, I'd like to get your 2 cents on this as well. What do you think about Steam finally accepting Bitcoin?
I'm not really a gamer, but I do think that behind maybe gambling, which is actually, gaming, gambling, same word, same very similar type of thing, especially like if you do what Blake's talking about and what happens in games like Eulora, which is the big multiplayer game world created by Mircea Popescu that has Bitcoin as its scarce currency, along with the scarce geological whatever formations and things inside the game. What you have is really a type. It's related to gambling because maybe you're not depending on luck as much and there's more skill involved, but you can gamble inside of a video game already. And so if you've got if in World of Warcraft instead of WoW Gold you have Bitcoin and you go to the casino, you're freaking gambling. So
all my WoW casinos got shut down.
Oh really? Is it not allowed?
Yeah, no, you'll be like, yo, come here and roll dice. Like, give me all your gold to hold it and then roll dice and then I'll give it to you. And then a whole bunch of people would give it to you and just log off. And essentially they're like, you can't do this.
Man, I want to be able to.
I didn't do it personally, but so many people did.
I want to be able to use Bitcoin in game for not just gambling, but that'd be awesome to be able just for first person shooter, be like, I bet you 0.01 Bitcoin, that I'm going to win the next 5 matches. Wouldn't
that be awesome?
Sorry to interrupt, Gabriel.
Go log into Eulora if you like a multiplayer type of world where you can earn Bitcoin by doing stupid shit and grinding or whatever they call it and stuff. Grinding. But I actually don't know that much about the world, and so I'd like to ask you guys questions. My first question is really for Blake. Can you talk more about hats and the game accessory ecosystem and how Bitcoin could transform that?
Yeah, I'm going to try to see if I can actually screen share Steam without giving away all of my vital account information. And if I can't figure out how to do it, obviously I won't. But a blur filter. Let me configure a blur filter for 3 hours here really quick. What items do I even have? I'm trying to figure it out here. Inventory. Here we go. I've got all kinds of shit. Really valuable shit.
Super
It's going to be. What do I have? I have. It's like some kind of a rifle.
You can paste the link, and I'll paste it into the window here if you got a link.
Oh, sick! You have a link to a virtual possession.
That's what I'm trying to. Yeah, what I'm trying to get is a link to actually one of the price charts, historic price charts for one of these virtual items.
Yep.
Have you guys read the novel Reamdy by Neil Stephenson from 2011?
Nope.
No.
Really, really great techno thriller where the whole premise is that there's a big successful what is it called? MMORPG.
Yep.
And that was created with this sort of Eulora model where they used actual geology, and so gold veins are genuinely scarce and stuff. And what did they do? There was a virus. Somebody released a virus. These Chinese hackers released a virus into the game system, and that locked up the characters' wealth, genuinely scarce gold in the game system, the fantasy game system, and then they extorted them in the real world, and they said, if you want your gold in the game back, it's basically ransomware.
Wow.
For the game world, and it required you to pay $70. But then it spread way more than the virus spread to hundreds of thousands and millions of individuals, and they were trying to get the money, wired to China, and so these Russian mafia guys get stuck. It's very cool story.
Very cool. That sounds interesting.
It's really well done.
You got a link for us yet, Blake?
I'll send a link for the book.
Okay, cool.
I pasted one in the chat. I can't find the page that shows the historic market price, trade offers. Here we go. Maybe that's it. No. Trading topics. Well, this is making for a great blab.
Exactly. That's cool. I mean, so basically, Gabriel, there's basically hundreds of thousands of items at this point, and they can trade anywhere from pennies to the upwards of like $1 or $2. I mean, I've seen them as high as like $20 for a certain custom-made gun, like custom skinned gun and stuff. So I mean, it's just absolutely fascinating, this economy, and of course it's small like penny stocks, but man. I think it's only hasn't grown because there hasn't been the infrastructure. I mean, nobody knows about it. Like,
Blake, on the Bitcoin group, you mentioned that they have dollar amounts, and do they allow actual trades? People load up their accounts and they buy and sell and trade these items for fiat.
Yep. So there's two ways to get an item from somebody else. You can either offer to trade items that you have for barter, or you can actually use money that's stored in your Steam account that you can load up with money to buy these different things. And if you can load up your account with Bitcoin instead, hell to the yes, because there's so many people voluntarily interacting in that market space and contributing content that then those virtual goods have lots of value because there's a certain amount of time that you need to put into your Steam account to have it be worth a dick.
Right, it's labor.
If you don't put that time, exactly. So the scarcity that's applied to these different items, which seem like they should be infinitely recreatable, is that you can't really hack your Steam account without really fucking it up, and then you can't just make as many new ones as you want arbitrarily. You have to actually play these games for long enough to actually earn various different, very difficult achievements to be rewarded specific things.
Right,
and the difficulty of getting generally coincides with how valuable and rare they are.
And creating them too. Creating them is difficult, as well. Like for people who create custom ones, because you have to skin it and model it.
And you can hack in some games and really fuck it up. Like in Team Fortress for PC, you can really, really go into some servers that have all kinds of stuff going on that would never happen in the normal game that triggers a lot of the stuff to happen. But then that kind of stuff is reflected in the value of those items as they're spammed into the network. So people try to program games where you can't do that.
Yeah, the beauty of the free market, it always finds a price that's at some sort of equilibrium point. So, but a question about the so all these games are inside. Valve makes all these games, and they're inside the Steam ecosystem. Is that correct?
So Valve doesn't make all the games. Basically, Steam is essentially a store, a digital marketplace. So that was the second half of what Blake was saying. The first half, really, what they solved was patching. The second half was distribution.
Right. Okay. So there's this Steam store, and all the games on this platform have some sort of interoperability with this market that allows the ownership to be transferred properly via the Steam store. Is that correct? So they manage the change of ownership and the exchange of payment. Is that the story?
Repeat that last question again.
So Steam is managing the change of ownership of these items and the exchange of money as well.
Correct. Managing all of that. Yeah, that's their entire platform.
Right. So the games have some sort of interoperability with the Steam.
Correct. Steam releases Steam has an SDK. Steam has an SDK that games are required to implement so that it can work with Steam.
Okay,
if you want your game sold on Steam, you gotta integrate.
Okay, yeah, this is what I see. I didn't even quite understand that there's a big SDK and there's a Steam platform ecosystem, and that's how they become. Okay, yeah, so there's already an existing market, and so Bitcoin is just totally perfect.
Just huge.
Exactly. So unlike all this other stuff that's trying to, build up and then have Bitcoin there, if you build it, hopefully people will come. This is the exact opposite of that, and people are like, "Oh, don't kowtow to the establishment." It's like that's really not what this is. This is really exciting.
Exactly. And again, we're talking about influencing the youth, and I think that this could just be priceless in terms of of changing the hearts and minds of people. So, because
the educational value of it is just astronomical.
There's just no way the system is going to change, under people above, 50, basically. Like they are 100%, not to be ageism, not to have ageism in here, but let's be honest here. Like people really above 50, like don't want the system to change almost because they're still benefiting for the vast majority of them are still benefiting.
I hate everybody over 50 and under 4.
Exactly. So
if a 3-year-old comes at me, I'm like, you bet.
I try to to tell some of my family members about Bitcoin and stuff, and some of them have fairly large amounts of fiat, still saved in their safes and in the banks, and it's just like, look, you guys,
it's like, why are you pissing it away? Like,
I tried to help them
at least get some exposure.
I tried to help them. At least my grandpa understands gold, so he definitely has some gold in addition to his paper. So that's really cool. But I cannot for the life of me get my mom to buy gold. So
well, I don't know. In a worst case scenario, what do you think is going to happen with physical commodities, especially ones that are supposed to be holding value? Platinum, palladium, gold, silver, and diamonds, I think, are going to be mass liquidated by nation states trying to retain control when a huge financial collapse happens, when a COMEX default happens. That's basically what the end result of it is. It's all of those commodities being sold off and leaving all the people that thought that they were doing things that were going to help their family in the long run being left with absolutely the most worthly shit in all of history.
Gold?
There'll be piles of gold and diamonds in the road and shit because it all got sold off. Maybe not, because China and India are hoarding so goddamn much of it that might not be the case.
Yeah,
they might have actually ended up making a big enough dent that won't happen. But I think that, definitely as a lot of stores of different stuff are liquidated by nation states that are just really literally hoarding it just because, I think that's going to have a big impact on people that were thinking that they were going to do really well by holding those things through a collapse. It's a worst case scenario, really kind of a fear porn thing, but important to consider.
It's definitely important to consider, but it's just so hard to believe because gold has held its value for so many thousands of years. It's just hard to believe that even gold would lose value. I mean,
I think it's more diamonds are going to be piled in the street than gold.
Oh yeah, we know diamonds aren't scarce. We know that
that's
shit.
Not a store of value. But gold is an interesting conundrum, isn't it? I mean, the thing about physical commodities is that as much as people like to ignore it, we're entering into the age of atomic control and nano machinery.
Yep.
And what we would maybe consider previous centuries would consider alchemy. And we can already create gemstones synthetically. It's not going to be that many decades before we can also create elements relatively cheaply with extremely efficient energy production.
And it'll be like gaudy costume jewelry at that point.
Right. So at that point, I mean, this is not, within the next 10 years, but I don't think. But, at that point, something that's mathematically scarce will be very, very much superior to just another atom that you can create very easily.
Very interesting. Very interesting discussion, guys. Well, I'd love to keep it going longer. Normally, I probably would, actually, but I forgot my battery. So I'm going to have to kill it before my battery dies. So I just wanted to say, thanks, guys, so much for participating in the show. For all of the viewers that watch us live, we really appreciate you so much being in the chat and helping make the show. Because really, this is a live show. A lot of other shows aren't such live. A lot of other shows aren't really live, so to speak. They're just kind of pre-recorded. But we really like to create live shows so that people can come in and create unexpected things, have unexpected conversations, and really involve the audience. That's a big part of this show, is involving people and trying to get them in the show and trying to get people in the chat and answering questions. So we really want to help people understand Bitcoin. And so please, if you know anybody who wants to know more about it, or if you know anybody that maybe wants to talk about it some more, maybe even to the point of having a show, definitely bring them in here. We'll get them on the show. We'll get them live, and we'll start talking Bitcoin. So we very much appreciate everybody who tunes in. We upload this show as always every time to the World Crypto Network YouTube channel, so you'll be able to view it there in addition to viewing it here on Blab. So there'll be comments there as well as here. So definitely comment on us on YouTube as well. And of course, again, like we said in the beginning, we really appreciate anybody who wants to join into the World Crypto Slack channel. We love to talk Bitcoin on there. We're always trying to create ideas and share ideas and thoughts and create new shows and stuff like that. So really a great place to hang out. A lot of good people in there. We really appreciate anybody who wants to come in and just, talk Bitcoin. That's what we love to do. We really believe in this technology changing the world. So Very awesome stuff. Thanks again, guys, for joining us. We're going to be here every other Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific. And so I just want to thank our guests one more time. Thank you very much, guys, for being on the show. Blake, thanks for being here for your first time. We really enjoyed having you. And that large cranium you got in there, really awesome. Where can we find you, Blake?
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here. I mean, it didn't hurt for my first time.
Awesome. Gabriel, love having you back on the show, man. Where can we find you?
Twitter at Gabriel Divine.
Very cool. And we have some people who try to say just follow us up there, right, with the name. But the problem is that they haven't actually put the name in the video yet. So eventually, we hope that they'll do that. Blab is saying that they'll do that eventually. So we hope that they'll put the actual names, like similar to Google Hangouts does, on the videos. So all right,
I'm not really sure what to do with my hand.
Right? I'm not
down
sure.
By your side.
I'm not sure what to do with my hand.
Going real fast. Feels like it's on a spaceship. Handle real good.
Oh my God. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, have a great night, and we'll see you again.
Bye-bye.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.
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 Bye.